Alright, today I just wanted to discuss PlayStation controllers a little bit here. But before we move on, I'm going to try to put a face to the disembodied voice you're hearing. This is me. I'm sorry that I don't have a camera person, but this will have to do. And the other possible concern, just getting it out of the way, that somebody might want to accuse me of being a Microsoft or Nintendo fanboy wanting to flame on Sony. I have various Nintendo consoles, obviously, Wii and Super Nintendo and N64 or NES or GameCube, or the N64 is down there in the cabinet somewhere. But I also have the original Xbox, and in the dark down there, kind of hard to see, is my PlayStation 2, and up there is my PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and I play all these, and I have lots of games for all these, well, except for the PlayStation 3, I've only got one, but that's beside the point. So anyways, the reason for wanting to discuss the PlayStation controllers is the fanboys. The ignorant fanboy comments on the message boards about how wonderful and perfect they are, and there's no room for improvement, and that we ought to have the exact same controller again and again with no change, just as the way Sony's been playing it. You guys keep telling Sony that this thing's perfect and you don't want to improve it, but there's plenty of room for improvement, and we're going to discuss that. There's my PlayStation 3 DualShock 3 controller right now. But first, a little history about why the PlayStation controller is the way it is. Go back several generations ago, some generations before some of you had even been alive. There's the original NES controller. Now, of course, that's not the first console generation either, but, well, what's important is that that design led to the design of our current controllers. You see the button layout on that. Go a generation later to the Super Nintendo, and it just improved on that. Obviously, it's a little bit more ergonomic, a bit more rounded here than the old square, uncomfortable, boxy controller. They added shoulder buttons. That's getting out of focus on me here. There we go. And a second row of face buttons there in the configuration that they basically are still to this day, several generations later. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a original PlayStation controller to show you, but, well, what you may not know, first of all, is that the original PlayStation was going to be a joint project with Nintendo. It was going to be a variation of the Super Nintendo with a CD-ROM drive manufactured by Sony. The deal fell through. Sony took what they had been working on, which was at the time even called PlayStation, and made it a standalone console, as the PlayStation that many of you owned some years back. And not surprisingly, the controller for the original PlayStation controller is very similar to the Super Nintendo. If you look at the button layout we got here, just imagine those A, B, and X and Y renamed as ridiculous shapes, and ice cream cones as grips sticking out of them, and that's where you got the PlayStation controller layout. Now, they improved on that after some improvements that Nintendo had led the way with first. The N64 had an analog control stick, and I don't have an N64 controller handy right now to show you, but after that took off, they revamped their controller, and again, I don't have an original PlayStation controller, but they added analog sticks, and the only place that they had room, which was the lower center there, where they remain to this day. Then, after the success of the Rumble Pack for the Nintendo 64, Sony revamped their controller again into DualShock, adding Rumble after making fun of it as a gimmick. Now, this is the PlayStation 2 controller that I have here, which takes me into some of my complaints I want to make here. First and foremost, why do I still have to, after all these generations, have to reach all the way out here for my analog stick? Why, oh why, couldn't they move up here where my thumb naturally wants to rest? Where's my 360 controller here? See, right there, that's where it ought to be. That's where my thumb wants to rest. And after 3 generations and several iterations of Sony's controllers, they still want to put the analog stick all the way here. My hand does not naturally comfortably want to reach all the way out here for an analog stick, and it shouldn't have to. There's no excuse for that, Sony. But you fanboys love your controller and to praise it and sing Sony's praises and tell them, no, leave everything exactly the way it is. So thanks a bunch, guys. Let's see. Second, I'm going to go to my Pelican PlayStation 2 controller here. It made an improvement that I like to see other people blatantly rip off. See where my finger is down there? See, we got a total of 4 shoulder buttons. L1, L2, R1, and R2. Now, what I can do with this controller is, like we would often do with the other controller, is put, 4 total fingers on those 4 shoulder buttons. Index and middle fingers. But the advantage here, if you can see, is that my the L2 and R2 are beneath the case of the controller. What this means is the middle fingers here get to provide additional support for the controller by the controller being able to rest on top of my index finger. This is in contrast to Sony's DualShock controller here, which leaves the controller supported by only my 2 weakest, puniest fingers down there and nothing more. So that's not just a Sony thing. I mean, everybody needs to rip that off right there. But let's see. Third, going to the DualShock 3 controller here, the L2 and R2 triggers. Why are they convex? Nothing has convex triggers. Look at a gun or pretty much any decent, respectable controller, and they are concave. They should come in, not bulge outward. But that's just kind of a little nitpicky thing here. But fourth, after all these generations, why are we still, what's with the shapes? Why are my buttons named after shapes? Going back to Super Nintendo controller here, there was a logic to the buttons. A, B at the start of the alphabet, and then you go up to the next row and you got X and Y at the other end of the alphabet. Technically, it probably should have been Y, Z, but X and Y kind of sounds better. So, but anyways, that makes a lot more sense than triangle, square, circle, X. I mean, it might just as well have been elephant, penis, giraffe, whatever. And there's no correlation. You can't relate. Like I say, there's a relationship between A and B and X and Y, and you don't have that with the shapes on the DualShock controllers here. X has no more relationship to O than it does to square or triangle. So it makes absolutely no sense. There's no logic to it whatsoever. They just wanted to do something different, evidently. But after all these generations, you guys still sing its praises, and it's wonderful. It makes perfect sense to somebody out there, evidently. But the other thing, the grips. Why does Sony still give me these little stubby, anti-ergonomic, conical grips? Looking at other controllers, like this third-party controller here I got from my PlayStation 3. See, there's more, slightly larger, but more ergonomic grips for me to hold on to. Much more comfortable, and same thing with my Xbox 360 controller here. But this is again lacking with the Sony controllers here, which evidently Sony believes that I'm a 5-year-old, and that my hand for some reason wants to take the shape of an ice cream cone whenever I grasp things. Don't know why, but again, you guys want to sing its praises and tell Sony that's perfect instead of telling them, hey, look, we got room for improvement here. So I'm hoping I ain't forgetting nothing here. And I guess that's going to conclude my rant for now. I'm sorry that it's a little disorganized here. I never really plotted any of this out. I just grabbed the camera and start going. I'll see you next time.